Let's talk about all the books that I've read so far this year. This is actually my first book video I'm posting on my channel because I've become a full-on book girly and I want a place to talk about books. Welcome, this is a book channel now. I'm a big fan of BookTube and I want in, so here we are. And I figured what better way to hop into the book world than to just kind of update you guys on what I've been reading all year. The end of last year and like the beginning of this year, I really was in a book slump, which sucked and I hated it. So I've only read 23 books this year. Like, people read that in a month, you know? I used to read like 10 to 14 books in a month. I don't know, I just had a difficult time this year. I'm really like back on the reading and I just think like now that I have a place to talk about it and share it, I'm gonna do it so much more and I'm really excited about it. So I'm gonna update you guys on all the things I've been reading and let's get into it. And even though I'm only talking about 23 books today, I feel like I could talk about all these books for forever. So I'm gonna try to fly through them as fast as physically possible. I have a good amount of physical books here. I do have a lot of books that I read on my Kindle, so I don't have the physical copy of every book, but like, I don't need it. So let's start out with the first book I read this year. It was Confess by Colleen Hoover. So the reason I picked this book up is because I was in a reading slump. And if there's one thing I know about Colleen Hoover, it's that her books are not too long. They're usually fast-paced, have your attention the entire time. So I thought that'd be really good for me in my reading slump. And it was. Out of all of Colleen Hoover's books, this is definitely not my favorite. I gave this like a 3-star. And if you go on my Goodreads and follow me on there, you might see different ratings. I will give a book a rating and then change my mind later. So like, take my Goodreads ratings with a grain of salt. I think as I read more books, like I'm better about my ratings and stuff like that. But I don't know, because sometimes I think I'm too nice when I first finish a book because I'm like, well, I enjoyed it. And then I look back and I'm like, but it wasn't really that good. I'm really easily entertained. Like, that's really what it comes down to. And this book was entertaining to me. One thing I do have to say like I love about this book was the artwork in it. Like, that was probably the coolest part of this book. Next was a Kindle book, was Twisted Games, which is the second book in the Twisted series. I read Twisted Love last year. Twisted Games was so good, way better than Twisted Love. I gave it like a 4 stars. It wasn't like a full 5-star read, but it was one of those things that I loved every minute of it. I loved the romance in it. I loved like the princess and bodyguard. Chef's kiss. This past year has been the craziest year of my life, and when I think back on these books, I feel like I read them 5 years ago. So honestly, it's kind of hard for me to like remember all the details, remember all my feelings. I just like know how I feel about it in my heart, and that's about all I have for you right now. Do you just ever look at a book that you've read and you can just like feel the feelings that you felt when you read it, even if you don't remember the details? Because that's kind of how I feel. I did not go any farther in the Twisted series, but I do kind of want to finish it. Next up, Court of Mist and Fury. All right, so I have a lot of things I need to say on this book and this series in general. I'm sure if you know anything about ACOTAR, it's that this book is the most hyped book in the series. This book hit me at an unfortunate time in my life, and I read about half of it and then took, oh gosh, maybe like I took a break from it that lasted months before I basically had to force myself back into this world. I didn't love this book as much as other people did, and not to say I didn't love it or I don't love the series as a whole, like I really do. It did not have me captivated the same as I had everybody else. I felt like the middle of this book was kind of slow. Like, it is meant to, I kind of just think like be a slow burn. The burn was too slow for me in this book. I gave it a 3 stars. Sometimes I feel like I want to go back and reread it and give it another chance because again, it did hit me at an unfortunate time like in my personal life, but I don't know. Court of Wings and Ruin. I often feel like Mist and Fury wasn't your favorite, then this one is. First 3 books in the series kind of like go together more, it feels like, because when we jump into the next books, it kind of takes on a different storyline almost. And out of the first 3, this was definitely my favorite. I was actually surprised at how much I enjoyed like the politics and seeing all the different courts. Now, I don't think this is too much information because I feel like pretty much everybody knows this about this series. I knew this about this book before I even read it, that, you know, there's kind of a battle that takes place. And this is my beef with the first 3 books, is that I feel like we talked about this war or whatever for like 3 whole chunky ass books to have it be like this. It was amazing. It was heart-wrenching. It was intense. I was on the edge of my seat. Like, it was so good. But I just feel like with the ACOTAR series, it's kind of like, we have this problem we need to solve, right? So we need to do this in order to solve that problem. And when we do this, there's 15 more things that happen. So now we need to solve all of those things. And every time we solve one of those things, we have more problems that arise. And I realize that kind of happens in books, but like, it just felt like it happened too much. And I felt like, when are we getting to the point? And it seems that Sarah J. Maas has a way of kind of like stringing you along for 500 pages for the last like 50 to 100 pages to be pure chaos. At the end of Mist and Fury and the end of Wings and Ruin, that's when you're like, ah! That's how you end the book feeling. This is definitely my favorite of the first three. Then we move on to Frost and Starlight. Honestly, I feel a little bit like, I think I give this book 3 stars because it was like fine. Feels like a cute, pointless Christmas episode, you know, where like not a whole lot happens, but it's just like vibes. And I read this book so fast. I read it on a plane and I read it so fast and I was like, I need to just get this done so I can move on with it. And that's basically all I remember from it. There was like one major thing that happened in this book, and I feel like they could have included like one sentence in another book and that could have satisfied me with this book, but it was still cute. Like, it was cute. Court of Silver Flames is definitely my favorite book of the entire series. First of all, let me say that another thing that I have like beef with this series is that I feel like people act like this series is all smut. Now, I read a lot of spicy books, okay? So if you've never read any spice, then like, people always talk about Mist and Fury. Mist and Fury is literally like Colleen Hoover level spice. Like, there's one scene, it's mild. This book has a lot more. And that seems to be the only thing that people really say about this book. And I have beef with that. Let me tell you why. Because this book is full of character development, these amazing, beautiful female friendships. This book, to me, is more like girl power than it is romance and smut. Now, let me tell you, there is a decent amount of that in there and it is good. And listen, I love Cassian, like I really do. He's like, I think he's hilarious. Like, I just think he's a goof and I love it. But I feel like 75% of this book is, yeah, I don't know how else to describe it besides like girl power. Female friendships in this book are beautiful. The way that they become friends and come together and like do these incredible things, to me, should be the theme of the book. And everybody's focusing on the smut. If you want the smut, I wouldn't go into this series or this book thinking that's like really what you're getting. You do get some. It's great. It's a good time. I enjoy it. But this book was so good. This is, in my opinion, the best book in the series, like literally. Next we have The Fine Print by Lauren Asher. I also read this on my Kindle. It is on Kindle Unlimited if you do have Kindle Unlimited. This is the only book so far I've read in the Dreamland Billionaire series, which is a very hyped series. And when I read this book, I was kind of surprised that this series was as hyped as it was. I gave it 3 stars. To me, it was just like your basic rom-com type of story. There were 2 things that I really loved about this book. Number 1 is like the Disney vibes, because it is based around Dreamland, which like in this world is basically Disney. The second thing I loved about this book is that our FMC has a sister that has Down syndrome. And she, first of all, I have a cousin who I grew up with and I'm really close with. He literally texted me like 5 minutes ago and he has Down syndrome and I love him. So that like hit a soft spot in my heart. Her sister was adorable and hilarious and I just feel like it was just portrayed adorably, and that was probably like what I love most about this book, and probably the only reason I gave it a higher rating. It wasn't bad. There was never a point in the book where I was like, oh, I'm bored and this sucks or like whatever. I just felt like it was kind of basic. I do want to finish the series only because I want to get to the last book because I keep hearing amazing things about it. But yeah, after the first book, I just was surprised that the series was so hyped. Next, we have Kingdom of the Wicked. I hear so many bad things about this book and I don't know why. I gave it 4 stars, okay? This is what I think. I think you need to go into this book maybe like expecting what it is. This is a young adult fantasy and it's very much giving young adult. This book is kind of like a mass murder mystery, but with witches and demons. And if that can be lighthearted, that's what this book is. I don't know how you're able to make it such like a lighthearted, like cute and fun vibe while literally talking about mass murder with witches and demons, but That's what it was. I just thought it was like cute and fun and like a good time. Like it wasn't anything super crazy. It wasn't anything like very like light fantasy. Like it's set in Italy, you know, it's set in our world, just like there's witches and demons. I thought it was a good time. I really liked it. And then I jumped into Haunting Adeline, which again is on Kindle Unlimited. I love that book. And sometimes I feel embarrassed to say that, which is crazy because obviously a lot of people love that book, but like when I was reading it, I was like, I feel like I'm insane for enjoying this. Like there's gotta be something wrong with me because I'm loving this so much. This book is very spicy. If you've ever heard anything about Haunting Adeline, you know it's messed up. But again, I feel like it's another book that like isn't accurately depicted. Like yes, that stuff is a good chunk of the book, okay? But we also have very interesting storylines. Like this is a dual POV, and with Adeline, we have also this whole other like kind of like a mystery she's trying to solve, like with her grandma, and all these like really interesting kind of like clues and things you're trying to figure out throughout the book. With Zaid, we have, I don't want to go too much into what he does because I don't know if that's maybe like giving things away, or if maybe like I just shouldn't even like talk about that on YouTube. Like if you're sensitive, probably don't read this book. We know to look up trigger warnings. Personally, I never look up trigger warnings because I'm like, sign me up, because I'm crazy. You know yourself, and if you need to do that, definitely do that. I think like what Zaid does for like his job basically is interesting, and like it just like adds this whole other like dynamic to the story I feel like people don't talk about. There was more of a storyline to it than I thought, is kind of what I should say. Like very spicy, it's very twisted, it's very messed up, but damn, is it good. Next, we moved on to Kingdom of the Cursed, which is the second book in the Kingdom of the Wicked trilogy. This book, honestly, I barely even remember it. I gave it 3 stars. This book was giving ACOTAR vibes in that, like, in the first book, which is on the back of the book, this is not a spoiler, okay? Her sister gets murdered. We're still trying to figure out her sister's murder. And I was kind of like, I'm sick of this now. It seems like with this trilogy, like a lot of things happen in the first book, a lot of things happen in the third book, and this is kind of just like filler information that like is necessary, but like isn't maybe the most fun. It is still a little bit of fun. It kind of does give Mist and Fury vibes, right? This is giving also ACOWAR vibes, Wings and Ruin vibes, because this book is kind of centered around like these demons that are the princes of hell, which are like wrath, lust, gluttony, sloth, pride. There's 2 others. They have like these 7 houses of like 7 deadly sins. Is that what they're called? I literally went to Christian school growing up, like, and I don't know. But you do start to kind of like learn more about like all these different houses, and like, yes, this is like the more politics, this is the more politics centered book of the series, which I actually tend to, in real life, politics, no thank you. In fantasy books, hell yeah, sign me up. So you just kind of learn more about like their world, and I think that's kind of like what this book is more like the basis of it. It's not the most interesting, action-packed based off of my memory. I could be totally wrong because I literally don't remember what happened in this book, but that's just like the things that I do remember, like that's what it is. As far as the third book goes, I started it, I got like halfway through and then I haven't finished it. So like I still need to finish that book, and I want to see how this whole thing ends. But I have a problem, and what has kind of happened with me with a couple different books is sometimes I put a book down because I'm like, I'm just not in the mood for this right now. I go on to read other things and then I just kind of forget. And it's not that I didn't enjoy it, it's just like once I put a book down, it's kind of hard for me to pick it back up. So I'm trying to not do that anymore, because I did that a lot this year. Because of my reading slump, I was like just trying to pick up anything that interests me. I've learned to not do that anymore. Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. 5 stars. 5 stars. This book is so good. My mom has been sending me her TikToks of her dogs for so long, and we like didn't know she was an author until this book came out. And I was like, I've heard that name before actually. I never put it together that that person on TikTok was this author. If you haven't watched her TikTok, like you need to. This woman has lived 1,000 lives. She is like one of the most interesting people. I'm like, what? This book is like, when I think about it, like I just get like warm, fuzzy feelings. This book, we have Brianna and Jacob, and they kind of start off on the wrong foot, but I would not say it's an enemies to lovers situation, because they quickly make up from kind of getting off on the wrong foot. I don't even want to tell you what they do. I don't think it's a spoiler. It's not a spoiler, but I also think it'd just be cuter if you went in blind, because the way that they make up is the most adorable. Oh my God, it's so stinking cute. Like I just love it. And there is fake dating in here, which I love fake dating. They work together, so you get like a workplace vibe. They're doctors, so like it's interesting. Like a lot of layers to the story. And Jacob has a really bad anxiety, really bad social anxiety. And when I would read Jacob's chapters, I would literally laugh out loud because I'm like, this sounds exactly like the way I think. Like the way my train of thought goes, like it was just so accurately depicted, like anxiety in this book, and I just loved it. And I loved that it was the man that had anxiety. Their friendship was just like adorable, and then just everything about it was just so good. I want to read literally everything this woman writes down. Next up, we have Happy Place by Emily Henry. This book is so hyped and I don't really like it. I gave it 3 stars to be nice because there were moments that I was enjoying it. I refuse to believe that these people are full grown ass adults that were dating for a long time, were engaged to get married, and they can't practice basic communication. You were going to marry this man, marry him, and you can't like tell him how you feel? No. That's a big no for me. Second of all, people love to talk about the friendships in this book, centered around these friendships with like this sprinkle of romance. No, because she ignores her friends the entire book to obsess over this man that she literally won't talk to, that she was engaged to. No, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it, okay? The friendships in this book are centered around like college friends that are kind of like grown up and their lives are kind of going different ways and stuff like that. And I didn't go to college, therefore I don't have college friends, therefore I don't know what that feels like. And so I think maybe if like you do know what that feels like maybe this kind of hits different for you. I hear so many people say like they relate to Harriet so much, and I just want to ask you, like, are you okay? Seriously, if you are engaged to a man and you're so obsessed with not being able to talk to him or tell him anything of how you feel, and you ignore your friends to do so, are you okay? Because that's literally all I got from this book. It seems like people get very different things from this book, but that's literally all I got from this book. It was like, there were some cute vibes in it. Like it was summer, like this beautiful like beach house and like cute little beach town. And there were parts of it that were cute and fun, which is why I gave it a 3 stars, but like that is generous. That's very generous. Next we have Priest by Sierra Simone. Now I did give this 3 stars. This book is all spice. If you read this for the plot, you will be disappointed, my friend. And this book is a little bit dark and twisted, okay? It's about a priest and it's all spice. So like, do with that information what you will. But it was a good ass time. That's all I really have to say about it, and that's why I gave 3 stars. If you're looking for a book that you're like, you know what, I just want to read some smut, and that's kind of all I'm in the mood for, I would recommend this. If you're like, oh, I run a really good storyline and a really good romance and a really good plot, this ain't gonna be the book, okay? Meet Me at the Lake by Carly Fortune. This book is so terrible. Again, like it captured my attention enough for me to read it all, although it was a struggle. So I gave it 2 stars. Whole concept of this book is Fern and Will meet randomly one time, end up spending this entire day together, don't talk for 10 years, run into each other because Will has now been like hired as some like business consulting type person to help with Fern's mom's resort that she's now running. Again, I feel like we get a lot of miscommunication vibes in this book. Also, if you spent one day with somebody, I was actually so excited to read this book because I've had that happen to me before where I met somebody and like spent a day with them and like it made an impact on me. So I was like really excited to read this book because I was like, oh, I can relate. But turns out I simply cannot. In the chapters of the book that are in the past, like there's no chemistry. I don't get it. There's no chemistry then and there's no chemistry now. And I don't understand. I'm sorry, Carly Fortune, but every summer after, I hated so much too, because I love Love in Other Words, and Every Summer After was literally a carbon copy, but made worse. And then this book was so terrible, like, I'm sure Carly Fortune is a great person. I will definitely not be reading any of her books anymore because I hate them both. Next up, I finished Daisy Jones and the Six. This is another book I started, took a long break from, and then finished, but I did love this book. I gave it 4 stars. I know it's a 5-star for a lot of people. I think maybe because I did take that break, like it didn't quite hit 5 stars for me. I feel like it also didn't hit 5 stars for me because it didn't, I don't want this to sound bad, because like everything in this book was really like fun. It was really cool. There was a lot of like deeper issues talked about in this book. book that I didn't really realize going into it, and I think that made it really beautiful and really amazing, but it didn't like super have a plot, you know what I mean? Like it basically was just like you're following this story of this band, which was super cool to me. I love the way it was written. I love the interview style. I love how like somebody would say something and then somebody would say something completely different, and like there were parts of it like that that were really funny. Like this book is really, really good, and I'm probably one of the last people on earth to read it, but if there's an off chance that you haven't read this book, then like definitely read it. I definitely think it's worth it. I started the show as well, but I have not finished it because I literally never watch TV. Next up we have That One Night, which is a novella that is a prequel to Pucking Around. I wanted to read Pucking Around because I saw it all over TikTok, and I was like, it's one of the smuttiest books ever, and it's like about hockey people, and I was like, sign it up. Why did I say hockey people? Like as if they're not hockey players. Like, okay. I heard with this novella, like you can either read it before Pucking Around, but you don't need to. I can't even imagine going into Pucking Around and not reading this novella. This novella was so good. It was super short. It took me like an hour, maybe an hour and a half to read. It was basically like one long spicy scene, but it was so good. The MMC in it is like golden retriever energy. Like he was just adorable and fun and goofy, and it was just like a good ass time. I gave it 4 stars because it is a novella, so it is really short, so I don't know how I could give it 5 stars, but like if it was a full book and the book was just like that, like it would have been 5 stars. I ate it up. I loved every single solitary second of it. I was obsessed. I was like giggling and kicking my feet and like just obsessed. So I went straight into Pucking Around. This book is so long. I read it on Kindle, so I don't know how long it is. I'm gonna look. 750 pages of a hockey romance that's just based around smut. I started out this book being obsessed with it. Like I was like, this has potential to be 5 stars because I had just came off the novella. I was in love with it. I was in love with this story of these 2 people. Pucking Around is not that. Pucking Around is 3 guys, 1 girl. It was entertaining, like it was a good time for sure, but it just like went down a path that like didn't spark my personal interest. I did not know that about this book, and reading the novella, it's like I'm rooting for these 2 people to be together, but this is like not a story of monogamy. So I ended up giving it 3 stars. I did read all 750 pages. It was way too long. And it was kind of like, you know when books are just all smut, like Priest, like they try to put a plot in it and like try to put the story in. It's like, why do you even try to do this, right? Like, do we really even just like take this book for what it is? It's sex. Like, let's just call it what it is. It started out really good, and I ended up being like, meh. This is an obvious 5 stars. This is an obviously like infinity stars. Like, this is one of the best books ever. I don't care if you don't like fantasy, you don't read fantasy, like read this book. Literally read this book. There is not 1 second of Fourth Wing that is boring, dull, slow, like nothing. Everything about it is, to me, perfection. Every minute of it was, every page was amazing. I very much expected to love this, like due to the hype around it, but it still exceeded my expectations. I had never read books like with dragons in it before, and I'm in love with these dragons. Like, are you kidding me? Oh my gosh. And I don't even want to like say too much, because if you're one of the few people who haven't read Fourth Wing, like just go in as blind as you can. I don't know how you could, given that there's so much stuff on the internet, but go in as blind as you can and just like enjoy the ride. It's just so good. So good. I want to reread it. I've made my boyfriend read it, and like every time I'm like, what's happening? What's happening in the book? Like, tell me more, because I just want to hear about it again. I want to relive it again. Like, I cannot sleep, I cannot eat, I could not breathe until November 7th. And if you've read Fourth Wing, let me just tell you that I was reading this book and I finished it while I was on a plane surrounded by strangers. I was crying. I had my jaw on the floor. I was just so like, I wish I wasn't on a plane right now. I want to run around in circles and scream and yell and call somebody and like freak out. And this book is just, next up, we have the Summer I Turned Pretty trilogy. I'm just gonna kind of combine these together. I read them so fast. I literally read the first one all in one day. Like, they are short, they are young adult. Like, even the pages, like, there's not a lot of font on them. I don't even know if you can like, I just literally flew through this. Like, I just read it. I read the other 2 within the week. I read them because obviously I wanted to watch the show, but I have to read the book first. And I have started the show, but again, I don't watch TV, so I'm trying. I literally loved these books. I'm like actually in shock watching the show at like how different it is. I just feel like I'm so glad that I read the books to like know the story and like know this version of the story. It's so funny to me to hear people talk about it that haven't read the books and are watching this show. I'm just like, you don't even know what you're in for. Here's the age-old question. If you have an opinion, you can leave in the comments. Are we team Jeremiah or Conrad? Because here's how I feel. I feel like I'm both and I feel like I'm none. I love them both and I literally hate them both. I don't know how to feel. I don't really know. I can't even say like I was satisfied with the ending because I just literally don't know how to feel about it. There's so many things that happen. I'm excited to watch the show and see what they do with it, especially like when they do tackle book 3. I'm assuming that will be season 3. I'm really excited to see how they do it, and if I feel differently like watching the show, it'll be fun. Those are my thoughts. I gave them all 4 stars because I loved every minute of it. Couldn't put them down, was obsessed. But I just got really frustrated with literally every single character in this book. Last book we have is By a Thread by Lucy Score. This book is I feel like a lot of people really love this book and I enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. I was really excited about this book because the MMC in it, his name is Dominic, and that's my boyfriend's name, and so I thought it'd be really fun to read a Dominic, and this book was really spicy, and it turned out I didn't love that his name was Dominic by the end of it. I'm just kidding. It doesn't really affect me that much, or my opinion on it. But the only other book I've read by Lucy Score is Things We Never Got Over. I do want to finish the Knock 'Em Out trilogy. Pretty much all of Lucy Score's books are chunky. I think this is like 550 pages for a rom-com. Like, to me, this is just, again, a typical rom-com. It was really good. I just don't feel like it needs to be that long, and I kind of felt that way with Things We Never Got Over. There were more things that happened in that, but it kind of felt like, sometimes I do feel like that, like, are you just throwing this stuff in to like make it have more of a plot and like make it have more of like a point other than just being a rom-com? Because like, it's really just a rom-com. Anyways, I enjoyed this book. I did still give it 4 stars. Like, it was a good time. Like, it had me laughing out loud, kicking my feet at certain points, and other points I was like, okay, this is not necessary, which is why it got knocked down to a 4 star. So that's all the books that I finished. I will let you know what I'm reading right now, which is One Dark Window. I'm about halfway through because some people are putting this on 4th wing level. It's really good. I don't feel like 4th wing level. We'll see. I will definitely keep you guys updated when I finish this and how I feel about it. I guess that wasn't really necessary information, but I figured since I'm going through all the books I read this year, I might as well tell you where I'm at right now. That is the end. I don't know how people go through so many books so fast. I tried to make that really fast, but I feel like I can't help it. I have so many opinions on all of the books I read. How do you expect me to talk about 23 books in like 20 minutes? I don't think I can do that. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching me and my rant about books. Let me know if you've read any of these books, if you feel the same, if you feel differently. It's okay if we feel differently. They're just books. It's not that deep. And if you do feel differently than me, I would genuinely be curious to hear why that is. And if you're not already subscribed and you're a book girly too, make sure you subscribe because we're going down this book route on this channel now. I'm really excited about it, actually. Like, I've been genuinely thinking about it for a really long time, and I'm super excited about it. I am like so passionate about reading and so passionate about these books, and I, honest to God, just want an excuse to read more. So that's what this channel's gonna be. It's like, I have to read, I'm filming. I need to read more books so I can talk about them. So that is all for me today. I will see you guys in my next video.